Hello, everyone. My name is Fausto Tavares. I am a Google Chrome specialist here in New York City. I've been at Google for just about a year. Thank you for joining us today. Today, we're going to be learning about Chrome Enterprise and everything you need to know to get yourself started. Okay. In case you don't know me, once again, my name is Fausto Tavares. Today, we're going to be joined by Robert Gidis as well. And we're going to be discussing a lot of stuff that you're going to be able to implement fairly quickly and over the next couple of weeks.
So just some housekeeping and we'll jump right into the call. We'll be taking questions at the end. So as you know, all of you are on mute. If you press on the orange arrow, a question box will pop up. You can type your question in and we'll read your questions and have answers for you. After the webinar, a survey will be mailed to you. Please fill that out. Give us any feedback you have about this webinar or webinars you'd like to receive in the future. Also, we're recording the webinar. If you missed it or if you have colleagues that need to see this information, you can find it at pcm.com/webinars. Just a brief overview of PCM. I know you all are familiar with what we do. But including webinars, we offer comprehensive expertise and proven experience in emerging, advanced, and legacy technologies. To find out more information, go to our website, pcm.com, or by calling 1-800-700-1000. And with that, we're going to get started with our presentation today, and I'm going to hand it over.
So I wanted to get started right away in talking about the expectations that we have for our employees today. So one of the great things about the last 10 years is the fact that we have gotten a lot of incredible devices. We have gotten used to information that is right at our fingertips. A lot of the time that we spend on applications are usually spent on cloud applications. We have come to expect information right at the whenever we need it. Regardless of the location, regardless of the device. So because of all those things, we have taken that expectation and brought it into the enterprise. So therefore, one of the great things about devices over the last couple of years is that the devices are incredibly powerful. They have the ability to give you the information when you want it, but it's also important to remember a lot of the devices are fantastic, not just because of you can use them in your personal time, but also in the office. So let's talk about the cloud worker. We have an expectation as an employee about the kind of devices that we need. Okay, so because of that, we bring an expectation of speed, convenience, and collaboration. We also expect the devices to be able to flow from one device to the other, which is, something that's very important whenever you work, let's say, on a laptop, and you need this experience to transfer very seamlessly to your phone, very seamlessly to your tablet. We have the expectation, as I mentioned before, of working securely from any device, including the train, including, even the subway. And then when you come out, all this information is going to get synced automatically to the cloud. And we have an expectation as well about being able to access information on devices that are premium, on devices that you're going to look great using, regardless of whether you are a student, a CEO. Regardless of that, you want to be able to take this device out and feel comfortable with it. One of the great things about the last few years is the fact that, regardless of who you are as an employee, there's a lot of value to what you provide. We did a study with Emergence in 2019, and we found that 80% of the global workforce is deskless. What that means is that a lot of this information that these employees are using is crucial to the company. They need to have information right at their fingertips so that they're able to access the information very quickly and provide it to our customers. These cloud workers, these frontline employees are kind of the face of the company. So because of that, you want to make sure that they usually have the latest information at their fingertips. Okay? So let's talk a little bit about where we are headed, as an enterprise. So by 2020, we're going to have 83% of the enterprise workload already in the cloud, which is great, right? And then we already have 77% of enterprises with at least one application. So you may be thinking, okay, that sounds like a high number, but if you think about it, most organizations already are migrating all their email systems to the cloud. A lot of organizations are already using cloud storage, for example. So very slowly but surely, things are moving towards the cloud. Okay. Now, one of the things that we noticed though is that more and more organizations are leaving behind their endpoints. They're using legacy systems to address things that are actually problems that how are you going to address these problems with a system that wasn't actually built for the cloud, right? So this cycle that you see here, you're probably very familiar with. Even before you get to this point, you have to do something called imaging, which some of you may be very familiar with. When you get a new device, you have to prep it up. You have to install all the software, all the updates, all these applications. You have to install security software on it, encryption software. And then once you have it ready, you image it. But of course, the moment you image something, practically the next week is out of date, which means that if you're deploying an application in a couple of weeks from now, you have to run updates again and again. Okay, so we have this cycle of patching the OS, updating the software. You have antivirus definitions, which if they're out of date, you might as well have nothing installed because out of date virus definitions are completely useless. Okay, and then one of my favorite things, data backup. So the last job that I had, I actually got because the person before me, um, there was a server that died. The person before me was doing backups, but he never actually bothered to test whether the backups worked or not. And because of that, when he went to do the restore, he actually didn't have a good backup and he lost 9 months worth of data. Okay. Now, a lot of people may think, oh, he just kind of failed at the job. But what we failed to realize is that most organizations, they have a very small team of IT professionals that have to pretty much do everything. They're doing backups. They're doing support. They're doing training. They're doing break fix. They're doing all this stuff. So every now and then, this kind of stuff is going to slip through the cracks. And so we have to think about the best possible cloud native endpoints in order to minimize all these risks that IT is already facing. So this here clearly identifies some of the benefits that you're going to see as an IT department. So for you as an IT department, you're going to have a system that is secure by design, something that is from the ground up, built with security in mind. This is not bolted on a legacy system after the fact. You're going to get enterprise capabilities. Now, what do we mean by that? We actually are going to meet you where you are. If you're using systems, we can integrate into them. You're going to get a smart investment that over time, with the savings that you're going to get from all these devices and all these systems, you're going to see a huge amount of savings. For the users, what does that mean? I mentioned at the beginning that there is an expectation for applications, right? So the applications are going to be, you're going to be able to access them regardless of the device that you're in. You're going to be able to deploy applications to thousands of devices very easily. This is a smart way to work. Not only are the devices and the tools that will give you really smart, but we have built in artificial intelligence and machine learning right on the devices themselves. And these devices are going to learn the behavior of the user and adjust themselves to that. And then we have versatile devices that can adjust to any use case. So what is Chrome Enterprise? We have partnered with several OEMs, and HP has been a fantastic partner. So if you get a Chromebook, right, that's just called a regular Chromebook. But once you add a Chrome Enterprise upgrade, then that becomes Chromebook Enterprise. The Chrome Enterprise upgrade is what basically unlocks all the features that you're going to need in the enterprise to manage your users, to manage devices, applications, security, even networking. All of this stuff is going to be built right in once you do the Chrome Enterprise upgrade. So most people think that sometimes, Chromebooks are for students. They're going to be low quality. That's actually not the case. With Chromebook Enterprise, you can expect devices that have at least 8 gigs of RAM at all times. Okay? They can go all the way up to 32 or even more. All the devices are going to have at least 8 hours of battery life so that, of course, you can get an entire workday done without having to plug in. You're going to have the latest on Intel processors, that's, up to Core i7, premium builds. I mentioned before that the users are expecting to have a device that they feel proud of. So if they feel proud of this device, they're going to use it regularly, and the satisfaction with your IT department is going to go up. So we have a big range of devices that are going to allow you to do all that stuff. And then, of course, we have on-device storage that can be super fast to access the stuff that you have locally, which means that you're going to get SSD drives. That's the fastest type of drive that you can buy right now. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about the OS, because this is where the fun begins. For the employees, what does that mean? It's going to mean downtime that is almost non-existent. Okay, so from the time you boot a device or the time you press the on button, you can be up and running in as little as 6 seconds, which is amazing. You're going to get to the login screen very quickly. Sometimes it's so fast that you press the button, right? You log in and you're up and running right away. In legacy devices, you usually get about 30 seconds at the beginning where the system is kind of sluggish because all these other processes are starting in the background. That's not the case here. So on top of that, one of the great things is that you have upgrades that are running in the background. You don't have to worry about the updates running and disturbing you, or running and then at the end of the day when you're about to go home, they tell you cannot shut the laptop down because something bad is going to happen. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. So the other great thing about the OS, like I mentioned before, is the accessibility to apps. Some people think that because Chrome OS is a cloud operating system that you can only access web apps. We can access web apps, especially progressive web apps, which have been fantastic. But we can also access the entire Google Play Store, which has more than 2.7 applications, Android applications in there, which is great. However, just because you have 2.7 million apps doesn't mean that your employees are going to get access to all that stuff. You're probably not going to want them, watching Netflix or something like that. So we give you the ability to create a managed store so that the employees can only see the stuff that you want them to see. Okay. The other thing that you could do is native Linux applications right on the system. No need for anything extra. And of course, we have Windows applications through our VDI solutions. VDI is a virtual desktop infrastructure. So for that kind of stuff, you're going to be able to access stuff on Citrix, VMware, if that's what if that's what you're familiar with. Okay. In terms of those applications, all you have to do in order to get those applications is go to the store, you make them available for your users, and then they'll be able to access all their legacy apps very, very easily. Okay. So many people think that we only have Google applications available, and that's not the case. If you go to the Play Store, you will notice that we have applications from all the major enterprise players in there, including Microsoft, and they do make Microsoft Office available as well. So if you are on Office 365 and this is something that's holding you back, you can actually go in there and use that. The same thing is going to happen with Adobe Tools, okay? So we have basically a system that allows you to deploy all these apps in a very new interface that was just released that allows you to access all the different types of apps from a single pane of glass. You can actually just go look for the app, and then it will tell you what type of app it is, and then you'll be able to deploy it. You'll be able to force install applications or just make them available. You can also pin them to the dock at the bottom so that the users will have them readily available. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about orchestration. As I mentioned before, we're going to meet you wherever you are. What does that mean? It means that if you're using tools like VMware Workspace ONE, Cisco Meraki, IBM Mass 360, any of these tools that you're using right now to manage the devices, we can work with them. Okay, if you prefer to actually manage the Chromebooks with one of these NVMs, feel free. We actually support all this stuff. Okay, and the same thing applies to Active Directory, which is a tool that most of you already have in your environment. So if you don't want to rip Active Directory out and you just want to take Chromebooks, you just have to buy the enterprise upgrade, and then you'll be able to manage all the Chromebooks natively with Active Directory. What does that mean? It means that you'll be able to join it to your domain. You will be able to have the users authenticate with a single username and password. All your group policies that you have already in your environment, you'll be able to apply it. And then one of the great things is that you actually won't have you won't have to sacrifice some of the great things, like for example, the Google Play Store, the extra security that comes with Chrome OS. All of the stuff is actually going to remain. Okay. Now let's talk about the unparalleled experience for users when it comes to sharing devices. So we have always said that these devices are built to be used individually, or you can actually share them very easily. Okay, all the devices have encryption at the profile level, which means that user A is not going to be able to get a Chromebook, go poking around and hack into user B and know what the contents of that partition, which is very, very important. This comes in very, very handy whenever you have a company that is in a regulated industry. Okay. The other great thing is that whenever you log in a Chromebook, you can actually shut it down, go open up a Chromebook somewhere else, something completely new, and you'll be able to pick up right where you left off. And one of the reasons we have that ability is a continuity that goes across devices. We mentioned before at the beginning that users have an expectation. So for example, if you're using Gmail, you expect the emails that you archive in one area to not show up again in another computer, right? The same happens here, but we go beyond that. Okay, all your apps are going to follow you regardless of device. Your bookmarks, all the preferences. If you have a new wallpaper, if you have a particular font, a particular zoom into your desktop, all that stuff is going to follow you. If you have autocomplete, like the autofill and all your login, username and password for websites, all that stuff will follow you. And that stuff is extremely important for the productivity of your staff. And then, of course, extensions. All the extensions that you give to the users will follow them regardless of where they log in. Okay? Now I wanted to talk about my favorite topic, which is security. Security, of course, you can't hide from it if you work in IT. It's part of our daily lives. I did IT. I was an IT administrator for 20 years before I started here. So I feel you. This is a really painful area. So we've had over the years, the state of security hasn't changed. If anything, it has gotten worse. So one of the biggest things is attacks, phishing attacks, and malware attacks that now will encrypt your entire hard drive. This is called ransomware. Most of the time, this comes through phishing attacks, and especially directed at Windows 7. The numbers that you see here come from a website called CVE Detailed, and as of February of this year, there have been more than 1,400 vulnerabilities on Windows, okay, over the last 10 years or so. So Windows 10, which has been out for 4 years, has more than 800. And Chrome OS, in almost 10 years, has 54. I mean, those numbers are kind of staggering, but you can actually go to the website, plug in the platforms yourself, and test it out. And you'll notice that the difference is amazing. And that, I'll show you in a minute why that is. Let's talk about some of the benefits of Chrome OS security. It all starts at the hardware. we keep talking about something called a layer approach to security. So, and it starts right here. One of the things that we love is called verify boot. This thing will go in and it will start making sure that the signatures for all these components that you see here, the firmware, the kernel, the OS itself, the applications, everything gets its own signature. And if any of this gets modified by malware, the device is going to reboot itself and it's going to give you a clean version of the OS. One of the reasons we do that, very easily is because at all times we're running 2 copies of the OS. Okay, it's a fantastic system. You can get a virus, right? And you can be up and running again in less than 10 minutes. That's pretty amazing. One of the great things about having those 2 versions of the OS running at all times is that our updates happen seamlessly for the user, okay? We have updates every 6 weeks, and all these updates get applied to the backup copy of the OS, and then after you reboot, your system is up to date, which is amazing. There's no slowdown. The users don't get nagged. It just tells you, hey, we updated. Whenever you get a chance, give it a reboot. And that's it. That's all it takes. For IT administrators, we give you 3 different channels. You can put the users on the stable channel, which is about every 6 weeks. You could get the beta channel, which is every, I think, 3 weeks. And then there's the developer channel that gives you updates pretty much once a week, okay? As an IT administrator, we also give you the ability of pinning down a version of the OS so that nothing gets updated until you review it, until you are satisfied that this update is not going to break something in your environment. So if you're confident that version, for example, 74 is the last one that you tested, you can tell the admin console, hey, I don't want any of my devices updated past this version. Very handy for the enterprise. Another great thing is user encryption. One of the worst things that could happen to me was whenever someone forgot their passwords and got the encryption in Sophos to kick in. They will give you like a huge code that they have to read you. It's like a 60-character thing, and you will have to read it back to them with another code. It was always a problem. So that actually kind of just goes out the window. All the devices are encrypted, right? And it's all done through the device itself. Every machine has something called a TPM chip, which is a security module that Google designed, and it is included in every device regardless of price. So the same device that could cost $200 or the one that costs $2,000, they will have this chip in there, and it allows us to do a lot of cool things when it comes to security. One of the great things about this is that because everything is so secure, we have everything on the device, fully encrypted. However, most of this stuff is in the cloud, okay? So we have a very small footprint on the device itself. And again, everything is encrypted on a per user level. We also give you something called ephemeral mode, which is fantastic if you work in an industry that is very mindful of security. So in ephemeral mode, whenever you log in in ephemeral mode, you get all your stuff, and then when you log out, it will wipe out your entire system, which is great. It leaves nothing behind. It's almost as if nothing was there. Okay. All these applications, right? All the applications that you have are basically sandbox. Now, sandboxing, it's a feature that works at several levels. So every application gets its own little sandbox, and it will not touch any other part of the operating system. So the operating system basically becomes read-only, okay? But then we also take it down even further, and we actually isolate all the websites on their own tabs. So if you go to a website and for some reason that website is infected, it doesn't spread to the tab next to it or to the rest of the operating system, which is something that is, extremely, extremely important. So if there is a rogue website or a rogue application, none of that stuff matters. And then let's talk about security keys. So here at Google, we have more than 100,000 employees. And in the last 2 years, since we have implemented two-factor authentication with the security keys, not a single account has been broken into. And here at Google, we are some of the most targeted people in the world because, if a hacker goes through, they have a lot to play with. And not a single account has been compromised since we use these keys. And guess what? This stuff is built into the admin console. All you have to do is activate it and then buy those little keys at no extra cost. You just have to pay for the keys themselves, but the software that powers this stuff is not an extra cost to you. The other thing that you could do with this is that you can actually implement the two-factor authentication to use mobile phones, and the users are simply going to get a text message in order to do that, which is pretty cool too. So you might have seen this before. You go to a website that kind of looks, legitimate, and right before you go in, you get a really big red screen that tells you the website that you're trying to access is compromised. You may not want to go there. So this is a feature that we have in every Chrome browser, regardless of platform. This works even on Windows, Mac, Linux, you name it. As Google, is a company that has been scouting the web for a search business, we have basically run into every malicious website out there that you could possibly imagine, and we've indexed everything, and we make sure that we let users know which ones are bad, which ones are safe to go to. And this, if you're an IT administrator, we also give you the ability of not even letting users get past the prompt. Like, you automatically redirect them, which is, pretty good stuff. And it's built right in. You don't have to do anything else for that. So this is what we call a multi-layer security approach. Basically, we have one security measure on top of the other, and we make sure that all these things kind of work together hand in hand. You may be thinking, okay, so what does that mean to me on an everyday basis? So it all starts, right, with the updates. Like I mentioned before, one of the most important things for our systems is the updates. They happen regularly, they happen consistently. The users don't need to be on VPN in order to get the updates. So that's one of the main things that keeps us safe. So what happens if a customer gets a phishing attempt? Well, the Google Safe browsing that we mentioned before is going to kick in and it's going to prevent them from getting to that session. Okay, but not only that, if they enter their password in there and the password gets stolen, we have two-factor authentication. So the bad guys may have the password, but you have the key, a physical key that is not going to let them log in. If for whatever reason this is still a problem, you have something called password alert policy, which basically will alert you and your IT administrator about the fact that you put in your corporate password in a website that is not owned by your company. And it will force you to change your password right there and then. Very important. So what happens if your company gets hit by ransomware? And I can guarantee you, if you haven't been hit by ransomware, you're going to be hit in the next couple of years. This stuff is rampant everywhere. Even government organizations are getting hit with this. So what happens if it hits you? Are you ready if ransomware hits, 100 of your devices? Well, in our case, the devices have almost no data in them. Okay? All of the stuff is in the cloud. So it doesn't really matter. But more importantly, the ransomware cannot modify the OS. Whenever they try to make any changes, it fails. If an attack prevails, you get prompted to do a verified boot reset, and guess what? Within 5 minutes, you're going to be up and running again. So you get right through it without any issues. So what happens if there's a malicious application? Let's say that a developer made some changes to the application, and now they're getting permissions to other things. Well, we basically have made it easy for you as an IT administrator to blacklist applications based on the type of permissions they're asking for, which is very important. Another important thing is the fact that you get to determine which applications the employees are able to see. Just because we have 2.7 million applications on the Play Store doesn't mean they're going to see them all. You determine what they see. If an attack prevails, we have sandboxing technology that I mentioned before. This is going to limit the surface of attack to just that little application. A lot of people ask, why is it that whenever I go to my antivirus vendor and I ask them for a version for Chromebook, they tell me they don't have one? Well, the reason is because we don't actually need it. Okay, this is the only operating system that is completely read-only. Nothing can be modified in there. All the apps and the websites are completely isolated in sandboxing. You have the verified boot, and the verified boot is fantastic because within a few minutes, if you get attacked, you'll be up and running again in no time. And then all the applications, you keep control of that. You control which apps go into your devices. So that's why we don't need antivirus. All this stuff is unlocked with the Chrome Enterprise upgrade that I mentioned to you at the beginning. It's advanced security, that keeps your data secure. You're going to have flexibility around all your devices. So if you want to use devices on a one-to-one basis, that's fine. If you want to use one-to-many, that's fine. If you want to use kiosk mode for signage, that's fine. We can support all those things. All of that stuff that I mentioned before gets controlled from a single pane of glass. You might have heard this before. It's called the Google Admin Console. And just recently, we actually did an update to the Admin Console, which, a lot of people were very happy when this came out because now it's 10 times faster. Here at Google, we have a saying that we like to 10x things. So because of that, we are able to make things a lot faster for you. You're able to find stuff faster right now. Thanks to the material design that we just implemented, you'll be able to search for things within the admin console and actually filter things out a lot easier. And we gave you additional policies for granular control of devices. So in total, we have more than 200 policies, and all of them can be applied to users or devices. And you're going to have management of printers a lot more easy. You're going to be able to manage which networks your devices log into automatically. And for example, if you don't want to give your Wi-Fi password to your employees, you can actually set that up so that the Chromebook automatically knows which network to log into without having to put in a password. And we support certificate login as well. So the users don't even have to know any type of credentials to log in. Super important stuff. So I know this is a lot to take in, right? But I can tell you with confidence, every device, you'll be able to save $482 on a per device basis. You're going to be able to lower your cost because now, remember, you're not going to have to pay, for antivirus, for encryption software, backup services, none of that stuff. You can actually cross those lines of your budget. The employee efficiency is going to increase. Because remember, they're not going to be sitting around waiting for you to re-image a computer whenever they get a virus. But all that stuff goes out the window. Okay? Now there's going to be even less of a risk of you, losing time and money because of viruses. And of course, you're going to save a lot of money on hardware. Remember, we have a lot of flexibility when it comes to devices, and therefore, you'll be able to give users exactly the hardware they need in order to get the job done. So if you have users now that, all they do is access a few websites, why give them a $2,000 notebook when they could do it with a cheaper device that actually matches the need? So when you take into account all these savings, you're going to be able to save a lot of money. But don't take my word for it. Okay, we have a calculator that you can go to. Okay, once you go to this TCO calculator, you can put in your own numbers, how much you're spending right now in all those services that I mentioned before, and then this will give you a number that is actually customized just for you. Okay, we have over the last few years been getting a lot of customers, very prestigious logos basically, and these are just some of them. and it's actually across all types of companies. So you have a lot on retail. We've seen a huge uptake in frontline workers in the retail space. Financial services, believe it or not, most major financial companies find the security one of the biggest selling points. So we're making huge strides in that area. And of course, we've always been really big when it comes to tech companies. So, right here, we don't have a list, but for example, Netflix is one of them, Pinterest, DoorDash. All these companies are basically cloud native companies. And from the beginning, they realized that they needed an operating system that will be able to do the things that they do, basically be cloud native. So I know some of you may not be, very familiar with this kind of stuff. So we have been working with PCM over the years to come up with services that are going to be very, very useful for you. One of those things is the Chromebook as a service, or they call it CVAS, which is quite a name. I actually like the name a lot. So one of the great things about it is that you can actually get a Chromebook device, pretty much as a service, just like the name implies here. And with HP devices, they start with as little as $8.16 for an education device. I think it's about $10 for an enterprise device. And depending on the level of service that you get something like White Glove, where they'll be able to, set everything up for you. You can get asset tagging. You'll get support. One of my favorite things in there is the integration into existing infrastructure, like Active Directory, if you have it in place. All this kind of stuff will be available to you as a customer. Okay. Now, some of you may not know whether or not you're ready to move to the cloud, and that's fair. I think when it comes to moving your enterprise to a new platform, there's a lot of investigation that has to go on. There's a lot of risks involved. Okay, so we have partnered with a company called Softwatch, and what they did was that they developed a program called the Chromebook Adoption Readiness Assessment. And what this does is that you'll be able to install a small client on every PC within your organization. And then this is going to give you a report of what your users are actually doing. It's going to tell you which applications they use and for how long. It's going to tell you which applications are cloud-based. And then it's going to give you a very detailed report that will tell you how many cloud workers do you have ready to go. It's going to tell you which workers could be potentially cloud workers if you only change an app or two. And then it's going to tell you, okay, these other workers over here, these desktop workers, they're now ready for the cloud. So the great thing about this is that we're offering a 3-month subscription for free. We're paying, we're picking up the tab on that. And you'll be able to basically get a detailed summary of everything within your organization. And then you can use that and go ahead and present it to your, to your C-levels, and then, be able to convince them that now is the right time to make the jump into Chrome. I would say take advantage of this as quickly as you can. You'll be able to do this up until December 6th. So, we just have a couple of months. So do it now, do it quickly. The address is there at the bottom. So I know what some of you may be thinking right now. It's Google. You guys sell ads. What does that mean for me if I become a Google customer? Sorry. So these are some of our commitments, right? No ads whatsoever if you are a paying customer. Simple as that. We don't use the data on your emails and on your documents on G Suite. None of that stuff is ever used to target you for ads. Simple as that. Okay, we don't touch it. And then, of course, your data is yours and yours alone. We don't use it for analysis. We don't use it for AI. We don't use it for any of that stuff. It's just yours. That's it. One of the great things, obviously, is the uptime. 99.9 service level agreement. Every time or any time that a Google server goes down, it actually makes the news. It happens so rarely that it actually makes the news. So that should give you an idea about the kind of stability that you can expect, on your deployment, whether it is on Chromebooks, G Suite, GCP, everything is pretty stable and you'll be able to stay in control. And of course, the last thing is it's your data and you're able to make a decision at any point about whether or not you want to export it, take it out of here, delete it. It's your data, so you do whatever you can with it. Okay, and that's something that we're very proud of. It's something that we have made a very significant amount of time just developing these rules, and every employee within this company follows that commitment. So now what we're going to do is we're going to open it up for questions. So I'm sure some of you may have questions around licensing, anything like that. So please let me know how we can get you to the next step.
Okay, so you'll see an orange arrow on your control panel. If you hit that, then the question box will open up, and then I will read also the questions that you submit. So feel free.
Yeah, I was going to say if you could just read it for me.
Yes, I'm going to.
Okay.
Yeah, just seeing if there's some here. Well, it looks like there's no questions at this time. So if there's any closing remarks you'd like to make, that would be great.
Sure. Just wanted to let you guys know a lot of the changes that you have seen recently, this is kind of the norm. Every 6 weeks, we come out with new updates, not just patches on security, but we also come out with new features. So this is something that you kind of can get used to it. We have even further made changes to the admin console that are making it even more useful to the IT department, and that's something that's actually setting the platform for even more changes in the next quarter that are going to be extremely exciting. So there's a lot of stuff coming up that is super exciting, especially in the enterprise side. So thank you so much. We appreciate your time, and we look forward to hearing back from you. If you have any questions regarding what we just saw, you can go ahead and let us know. If you want to touch base with the PCM team regarding the CBAS program, you can just contact CBAS, that's CBAAS at PCM.com, and they'll be able to give you some more information regarding that program and how you can start using the Chromebooks as a service. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate your time, and we look forward to hearing from you.